Hi, friends. Long time. I think it's only been a month, but it feels like so much longer. I've missed you. But the good news is we're here now. And I would like to welcome you to Cultivate Your Mental Wealth. And this is where we go from places of mental illness to places of mental wellness, and from mental wellness to mental abundance. Why? What's that about? It's because we as Black people need a space where we can discuss mental illness and how we can get from illness to wellness. Hope is possible, wellness is possible, and your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So come journey with me as we have tough conversations with a lot of love, a lot of patience, and a lot of grace. I also want to say happy Black History Month. I love the month of February. I know that some of y'all are saying, Joyce, we're halfway through, but guess what? The celebration continues. I am so happy to be here in this space doing this conversation during Black History Month. And this month is so much more than all of the trauma that we as a collective have been through and we still experience. Let this also be a month where we celebrate the amazing contributions that our community has given to society and the world. And let it also be a month where we highlight stories, because there isn't only one Black narrative. Forget that story. Don't let people tell you that there's only one Black narrative. There's so many of us, so much richness in our cultures. And I just love Black History Month. And before I continue, because I know I had to say that because I'm so excited about February, my name is Joyce Ozeh. I am a civil rights attorney in Chicago. I am also a mental health advocate with lived experience with depression and anxiety specifically. So I see that we're already doing shout outs along with saying where you're from now. Also, drop where your family's from in the history of Black History Month, in the spirit of Black History Month. That could be your grandparents, your auntie, your parents. Where are you located now? And where is your family from? There's going to be a time during the segment where I look at all the shout outs, I read through questions, and I just think it's important for us to share a little bit of culture and history. How's that sound? Good? Awesome. Thank you again for joining us. I am really excited about today's segment and today's space. But before we go into that, for those of you who have been watching the show and kind of know how things go, I like to set the room before we dive deep into discussion. And what that just means is, what can you expect? What are you looking forward to? And what is this space about? I may be on this side of the screen, but I want you to know that this is our conversation. This room, this space, this entire dialogue is for you and for me. Mental wellness is a journey, and we deserve to experience that journey in community with honesty, safety, transparency, and support. So let this be a time where you share what you're looking forward to, what your questions are, and I'll try to get to as many as possible later in the segment. With that being said, we cannot avoid the obvious. Along with it being Black History Month, it is also Valentine's Day. I know that this is live and this may also be recorded. But for those of you who are out and about with your significant others, with your gal pals or your guy friends, awesome. For those of you who are spending Valentine's Day evening, at least this part of it with me, even better. Because this segment, we are going to be talking about love. Love, love, love. How many of you guys cringe at Valentine's Day? I'm kind of the camp where I love any excuse to love on the people in my life, even strangers. I really, really genuinely love people, which is a funny thing to say because I do tend towards being an introvert. But when I meet people, I get so excited about them and I love them. But did you know that even on Valentine's Day, I would almost say especially on Valentine's Day, as it relates to mental health, that's when people can experience the most depression, anxiety, and just sense of loss and grief. This happens a lot during the holidays. And for those of you who have actually seen the show around the holidays in December, we kind of touched on this, how the holidays we have to be especially careful because it can heighten our sense of just emotional despair. So, along with dropping where you're from, where your family's from, maybe include some of your feelings around the commercialization of Valentine's Day. I personally do not think it's necessarily a bad thing that there is a day dedicated to love. I understand that it is also a day where companies like, we shall not mention them, but a lot of card companies get to make a lot of money off of cards, flowers, chocolates. So I can see some of the negative taboos. But also, I think it's a day where we're going on social media, we're seeing the highlight of people's lives, we're seeing flowers, vacations, chocolates. I was in social media earlier and I saw some of my friends were posting their wedding pictures. It can really be a time where if you're looking at all these things, surrounded by these things, and you may not be experiencing these things, that you just feel alone, isolated, anxious, or even depressed. I know that we've talked about how anxiety and depression can be clinical. I am not a healthcare professional, I'm a mental health advocate. So while I cannot give you mental health advice professionally, I can give you advice and my perspective as an advocate. So, what I mean by anxiety and depression can be triggering for some people, correct, absolutely, but also isolating. It doesn't necessarily mean that these people experience depression and anxiety all year round. Did you know that anxiety and depression can be looked at as seasonal? It can be triggered by holidays such as these, photos, and just memories of either a loved one that is passed or maybe a relationship that you've lost and that you're grieving. I say this to say that there is an important distinction between being diagnosed as having depression all year round or anxiety that's generalized, and depression and anxiety that is situational or triggered by an event or circumstance that is temporal, meaning there is a definite period of time where a person is going through these events, but it is not something that persists after the event. So some people experience depression and anxiety around the holidays or Valentine's Day, but it doesn't mean it's long term. The distinction is important because it helps inform how we talk about this, how we deal with this, and how we best support ourselves and the people that we love. Okay, now that I've laid the groundwork for this, let's dig in a little bit deeper. Let's get into the meat of just navigating depression and anxiety during Valentine's Day. This isn't to say that there aren't other mental illnesses that people experience, but these are the ones that are most heightened on this day. I want to call out and validate those who maybe are experiencing grief on this day because maybe you were in a relationship for a long time with someone that loved you back, and maybe they passed away. And maybe Valentine's Day is a day where you are being reminded of the love in your life that once existed and is no longer there. Did you also know that grief does not mean that someone died? How many of you all have gone through a breakup that has felt like grief or a loss? I also want to call out and validate those who are experiencing today who are maybe fresh out of a breakup, fresh out of a divorce. It may not be even fresh in terms of time, but fresh in terms of how you feel about it. And this day of what is being pushed out as romantic love triggers that sense of grief and loss. You're not being dramatic. You're not being hysterical. You're not overreacting. But most importantly, you are not alone. Grief Sadness, the sense of loss, that's actually natural. Those are natural emotions. Another group of folks that I want to validate and just give voice to are those who maybe haven't been in a relationship in years. Maybe you've never had a significant other. I have tons of friends who are well in their 30s and they've never had serious relationships. They may have had situationships, but committed relationships, they haven't had those. Or maybe you have gone years without having a serious relationship. And days like these are especially difficult. Again, you forcing happiness when you're not feeling happiness, there should not be shame around that. And what I want to really explore and dig deeper into is the fact that feeling sad, feeling lonely, experiencing grief are not things to be ashamed about. I want that to sit in. A lot of the times when we're talking about mental wellness, especially as it relates to the holidays, we think the answer is I'm going to just feel happy even though I'm by myself or even though I'm experiencing this loss. I'm just going to make myself feel happy. But again, feelings of sadness, grief, and loss are not inherently bad things. It only becomes a state of negativity when we really sit there and feed it to a point where we're not addressing underlying problems. So if you're feeling sad and lonely today, I don't want you to feel sad about feeling sad. If you're feeling shame, I don't want you to feel shame about legitimate feelings. Those are real. And the first thing I want to talk about is the best way to is through. The best way to is through. What do I mean by that? The best way to joy after experiencing grief, loss, loneliness is through the process of healing. What I often tell people, because aside from just my lived experience, I also experienced a traumatic loss as a child when my dad died suddenly of a terminal illness. It really progressed rapidly, and that was a huge trauma to me. And that gave me a lot of just grief, right? You cannot force yourself to joy by bypassing the process to healing. So, on a day like today, where maybe a breakup is really fresh on your mind, or maybe it's been years but you haven't dealt with it, don't expect yourself to feel joy or happiness if you haven't gotten through the process of healing. What does healing look like? It means acknowledging that, hey, I feel sad. Hey, I don't want to go on social media and look at all these cute couples because I feel sad. It is okay to feel sad, but you also must identify why you're feeling sad, process that grief, and give yourself time to process it. Processing it means that we're not going to stay in grief, but it also means that we're not going to act like it doesn't exist. It's okay to name it by name and to work through it. I also think that avoiding substance use, especially when you are sitting in loneliness and sadness, is really, really important. I technically qualify as a millennial, and I will say that a lot of the things that I've seen recently is just kind of glamorizing drinking culture, talking about how it's never too early in the day to drink a glass of wine, or happy hour is any hour, it's happy hour somewhere. Now, full transparency, I love a good craft cocktail. So I definitely am not judging or coming hard on just having a cocktail, socially enjoying yourself, and things of that nature. But when you are experiencing sadness and loneliness, it is important to avoid substance use. And I'm not talking about prescription medication that your doctor has prescribed with clear instructions on how to use it. I am talking about medicating or taking away your sadness with wine, Alcohol, any form of alcohol, even like Xanax or maybe someone you know has prescriptions. The reason I want folks to avoid substance use when they're feeling down, when they're feeling low, is because one, it just numbs you. It doesn't take away the problem. It doesn't actually help you process. It numbs you from what's really happening. And guess what happens the next day? The problem is still there. The heartache, the grief, the sense of loneliness is still there. Substance use in this instance just prolongs your period of avoiding what's actually there. It also creates an attachment. So you don't want to get into the cycle of as soon as I feel sad, I want to reach for a glass of wine, or as soon as I feel lonely, I want to reach for a cocktail. Because again, sadness is a natural feeling. It is okay to be sad. We are just here to talk about these things and to process that sadness so that we can get to a place of joy. So be mindful of what substances you're turning to in this time of sadness and loneliness. And guess what? An attachment can also be food. We are going to talk more about your gut health and your mental health. But if we're turning to food in order to feel better or comfortable, as opposed to we really like this food and it feeds our body and it fuels us, that can also be an unhealthy attachment. So be mindful of what you're doing and what you're using in times like now where you may be feeling lonely and sad, because we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for healthy patterns that help our minds and really just cultivate mental wellness. Also, very important, facts and feelings are two different things. One of my favorite things to say is feelings are not facts. Your feelings are not facts. What do I mean by that? It is important on days where you're feeling lonely or sad that you are able to separate what you're feeling and what your thoughts are. Here's an example. Let's say today I'm feeling especially sad because I have all the dating apps open and no one's hitting me back, no one asked me out, so I'm feeling sad. That's a feeling. We've identified that feeling. It's okay to feel that feeling. We've called it out, right? Thought based on that feeling could be, I'm feeling really sad. No one's asked me out. That means no one loves me. Or I'm feeling really lonely. I'm unlovable. No one wants to hang out with me. My friends don't care about me. This is where it's important to separate our feelings from our thoughts, because that feeling of sadness or loneliness can create thoughts that are not only negative, they're just untrue. Again, our feelings sometimes inform our thoughts, but we also have the ability to feel and to think thoughts that are contrary and more productive than our feelings. Here's an example. I'm feeling really sad. I'm experiencing a lot of loneliness. I'm experiencing grief from a recent breakup. But I choose to think that tomorrow is a new day. I choose to think that there are opportunities for me, that I am open to love. I'm open to relationships, that I won't always feel this way. I choose to think that this feeling is temporary. I choose to think that though I feel a little down now, or even completely down and broken now, I am on my way to healing. I'm on my way to processing. I'm on my way to renewal. I'm on my way to the next step in my life that won't look like this. My life won't always feel like this, and it won't always look like this. Now, before you say, Joyce, that just sounds like positive thinking, it's a bunch of mumbo jumbo, let me tell you another little story. There were plenty of Valentines where I didn't have an actual Valentine. There was a whole period of total singleness for me. And I was with my friends. We're all working professionals. A lot of us are women of color, most of us Black women. I'm talking doctors, lawyers, engineers, totally single, totally bummed out. And we would sit around, and guess what the conversation would be? Oh, there are no good men out there. Maybe you're a guy and you're feeling this, and they're like, oh, there are no good women out there. Or the conversation is like, oh, it's not going to happen because statistics show us that successful Black women, X, Y, and Z. Guess what I had to do with that friend group? They're still my friends to today. I still talk to them. But I knew that because of how we were feeling, we were creating thought patterns based on those feelings that were negative. And I wanted to experience wellness in my mind, also wellness in my life. And guess what? That starts with my mind. I had to actually distance myself from those specific friends who were using feelings to generate negative thought patterns and thinking. And I had to start telling myself a new narrative and a new story. So, you know what? I'm feeling really lonely on this Valentine's Day, but all I need is one of God's sons. God has millions of sons on this earth. All I'm asking for is one. And that is totally possible. That is not too big of an ask. That is not too far out of the realm of possibility. Or, yes, I'm lonely today, but there will be a day where I have a partner and it won't always feel like this. Or, yes, I'm feeling sad today, but in 10 minutes, I may not feel sad. I'm not always going to feel like this. I learned that in my seasons of total singleness that sometimes brought loneliness, I had to intentionally create thought patterns that weren't based on those feelings of loneliness or sadness. It is a practice. It may not be a perfect one, but it is a practice. So that is why it's significant to separate our feelings from our thoughts. I also want to underscore that it is okay to seek help in this process, okay? You don't have to do this alone. In fact, I don't think you should do it alone. There are healthcare providers whose entire profession and courses of study are dedicated to helping you navigate grief and loss, whether it is in your relationships where you've actually lost someone because of death, or grief and loss because you've lost them because of a breakup, because of divorce. Again, just because you're feeling grief and loss about someone and they're alive, it doesn't mean that you're overreacting. Sometimes our brains cannot process loss or breakups. It feels like a death. That is actually a natural reaction to a difficult and challenging situation. So, again, I want to validate you, but I also want to say, seek help. Seek help as you process. I know we talked about that the only way to is through. The only way to joy is sometimes through grief and sadness. Help let someone navigate and guide you to that joy. BDO, blackdoctor.org, has a ton of resources. They can actually connect you with Black healthcare professionals. And there are other ways to be connected. You can also seek a life coach. You can seek a mentor. You can even seek your religious leader, a pastor, a priest, just someone to process with you so that you are not doing the processing by yourself. Okay, so this is the time of the show where I go to what the audience is saying and what you guys have been saying. I've missed you all. So first, thank you so much, Darrell, for joining us all the way from New Jersey. I love hearing the origin stories. I want to keep that up all month. So you're saying that your family is originally from Beckley, West Virginia. I love that so much. Welcome, welcome. Benita, you are from Massachusetts and your family is from Georgia. I have family that grew up in Georgia. I didn't grow up in Georgia, but I swear that those were my coolest cousins. First of all, I love a little Georgia twang. And I just think the South is beautiful, especially because it's so rich in Black culture and what we've contributed to those communities in the South of this country. So welcome. Tina from Columbus, Ohio, welcome and happy Valentine's Day. I see folks talking about how it could be very triggering this day, especially if you find yourself alone. We're going to get to what to do if you do find yourself alone on holidays or especially on Valentine's Day. More holidays to come, so let's definitely keep in mind what to do. Dr. Maddox, so great to see you. Thank you for joining the space. Ursuline, I want to say happy Valentine's Day to you too. It's so good to see you again. I remember you from last time. So I love it when you guys connect. If you have any questions or any comments, please continue to share. I'm going to circle back after the show and I'm going to get to every single one of them. So thank you for joining the space. Okay, so I want to let you all know what's coming up next in our series for February. Our next show is going to be on Tuesday, February 28th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and that is 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And because it's Black History Month, I want to stick with the theme. I mean, it's Black History Month every month, to be honest, on the show. But we are especially sticking with the theme and looking at Black leaders and mental illness. I want to look at some of the Black leaders in our society, historical and present, who have experienced mental illness or who have ongoing experiences with mental illness, but who were able to overcome and contribute and continue to contribute greatly to society. You don't want to miss that conversation. Some of the people on the list are going to surprise you. I know they surprised me. And it's just to show you again how limitless we are as a people and as a community, and how mental wellness is possible. And if you are in the process of navigating that, you are not alone and you can still make great strides towards wellness and great contributions to society at large. So join us February 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time to see who's on the list and what they've done. Okay, so this is my other favorite part of the show besides talking to y'all, and that's where we talk about practical pushes towards your mental wellness. Yes, let's thrive because we were designed to do more than just survive. We were made to thrive. Okay, so you guys know that we talk a lot about self care. I'm almost hesitant to use the phrase self love. You can never love yourself too much. I think that there's always enough, but I want to make sure that we break down what that means and also understand that while it's important to do self check ins, to reflect with yourself, to journal, to have your personal affirmations, it is important that we are also in fellowship and community with other people. And that is why I only have one practical push for you. And that practical push for you is connect. We are talking about the spirit of love, all things love, and the way to experience love and mental wellness is to connect. What do I mean about that? So we talked about grief, isolation, loneliness, all of the above. And because as humans, we were designed for community, it's important that we connect with our community in order to experience love. I get it. Valentine's Day was created to celebrate kind of romantic love, but all of us know that there is love and there can be love in every single relationship that we have. The love of friendships, love of family, love of a partner. So, how do you cultivate love and experience love in other relationships? You connect. I'm saying this as an introvert. Make sure that you are reaching out with people. Make concrete plans and concrete efforts to connect with people in your community, your tight knit circle. So it's more than saying, we should grab lunch someday or let's do brunch. I challenge you to pull out your calendar. I don't care if it's your phone, I don't care if you're old school, you have a paper calendar. Pull out your calendar, reach out to one person, and set a date in your calendar to connect. It could be getting coffee, it could be getting lunch, it could be as simple as, hey, come over and let's just watch a movie on Netflix. The way to experience love is to connect with people we love. Make those plans set in stone. You know why? When you put it in your calendar, you're more likely to do it. Also, it gives you something to look forward to. When you're having an especially lonely day or tough week, it gives you something to hold on to. Like, you know what? I'm getting lunch with this person soon. I can hold on to that and look forward to that. That is how we instill hope and light in our minds as we're going through dark seasons. I also want to say that you should connect with those who are joy generators. There are going to be people who suck the life out of you, people who drain you. There are going to be seasons where you give more than you receive, and that's fine. But if you are in a season of loneliness, it's okay to intentionally connect with only those people that generate and spark joy in your life. That is my challenge, folks. Connect with at least one person in person and experience the love that you deserve. That's all I have for you. I cannot wait to see you in 2 weeks. Stay well. Happy Valentine's Day. Love yourself, love your community. Talk soon.